The words hit me like ice water. You're not worth investing in. My father didn't even look up from his mahogany desk as he said it. I stood there in my new business suit, my honors degree still fresh, my prestigious internship offer letter clutched in my trembling hands. I'd come to his office seeking approval, maybe even partnership. Instead, I got dismissal. I've been patient with you, Arya, but you're wasting my time. I don't have room for failure in my organization. The secretary appeared at the door like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. My father waved his hand, and just like that, I was escorted out. No discussion. No second chance. I wasn't his daughter in that moment. I was a bad investment. As I walked through the lobby of Benson Industries, past employees who'd watched me grow up, I felt their pitying stares burning into my back. Everyone had heard. Everyone knew. The great Marcus Benson had just publicly declared his own daughter worthless. I sat in my car for an hour, unable to drive. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my mother, from my brother Nathan, but I couldn't answer. The shame was suffocating. I'd spent my entire life trying to prove myself to him. Straight A's throughout school. Business degree with honors. Summer internships instead of vacations. I'd molded myself into exactly what I thought he wanted. And it still wasn't enough. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling, listening to my parents argue downstairs. My mother's voice carried up the stairs. She's your daughter, Marcus. How could you humiliate her like that? His response was cold. She needs to learn that the business world doesn't care about feelings. If she can't handle rejection, she'll never survive. But this wasn't the business world. This was my father. And he just taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, though not the one he intended. I left home the next morning before anyone woke up. I took only what I could carry and drove to the city, 3 hours away. My best friend from college, Maya, let me crash on her couch while I figured things out. He'll come around, she said, trying to comfort me. But I knew better. My father didn't come around. He doubled down. Within a week, I learned he'd made calls to connections in the industry, politely suggesting I wasn't ready for serious opportunities. The prestigious internship I'd been offered suddenly had budget constraints. 2 other positions I'd applied for went silent. He wasn't just rejecting me. He was actively sabotaging me. Fine. If he wanted to see what I could do without his help, without his name opening doors, I'd show him. I'd build something so big he couldn't ignore it. I'd become so successful he'd have to acknowledge me. But first, I had to survive. The first year was brutal. I worked 3 jobs to pay rent and save money. I waitressed during breakfast shifts, did data entry in the afternoons, and bartended at night. Maya would find me asleep at the kitchen table, my laptop still open, working on business plans between shifts. I enrolled in online courses, learning everything I could about finance, marketing, and technology. I studied companies that had disrupted industries, leaders who'd built empires from nothing. I became obsessed with understanding how businesses really worked, not just the theory my father had dismissed. My mother called occasionally, always when my father wasn't home. He asks about you, she'd lie gently. Come home, Arya. This has gone on long enough. But I wasn't going back. Not broke. Not beaten. Not until I could walk through those doors as someone he couldn't dismiss. During my breaks, I'd see posts about Nathan on social media. My golden brother, being groomed to take over the company, making appearances at industry events. The son my father had always wanted. 2 years in, I caught my first break. A small tech startup needed someone who understood both business and technology. The pay was terrible, but they offered equity. Most importantly, they took chances on unknowns. I threw myself into the work, often sleeping at the office. I learned how to code, how to pitch to investors, how to read market trends. The startup's founder, an older woman named Patricia, became an unexpected mentor. "You work like you're running from something," she observed one night. "No," I said, fingers flying across my keyboard. "I'm running towards something." She smiled. "Good answer. The ones running from something burn out. The ones running towards something become unstoppable." Our startup created software that helped small businesses manage their finances. It wasn't revolutionary, but it worked, and it solved real problems. When we landed our first major client, Patricia called me into her office. "I'm making you head of business development," she said. "You've earned it." I was 25 years old and finally building something real. By year 5, everything changed. Our little startup got acquired by a larger company for an amount that made my equity worth actual money. Not millions, but enough to start my own venture. Enough to prove I wasn't a failure. I used every penny to launch my own consulting firm, focused on helping struggling companies turn around their finances. I'd seen enough businesses fail to understand the patterns. More importantly, I'd learned to trust my instincts, something my father had never done. My firm grew slowly but steadily. I hired carefully, choosing people who'd been underestimated like me. People who worked like they had something to prove because they did. Within 2 years, we'd saved 17 companies from bankruptcy and earned a reputation for doing the impossible. Industry publications started noticing. At 27, I was interviewed for a business magazine's 30 Under 30 feature. They asked about my inspiration. I almost mentioned my father. Almost. Instead, I said, I learned that the only approval that matters is your own. I didn't follow news about Benson Industries. I trained myself not to search for my father's name or check the company's stock price. But the industry was small, and information traveled. Through clients and colleagues, I heard whispers. Benson Industries was struggling. Poor acquisitions, failed product launches, mounting debt. My father's legendary business instincts seemed to be failing him. Nathan was now Chief Operating Officer, my mother mentioned during one of our rare phone calls. Your brother's doing his best, but it's challenging. Your father won't listen to anyone anymore. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy. Just emptiness where family connection should have been. Then, on a Tuesday morning 8 years after that day in his office, my assistant buzzed. "Aria, there's a call from Benson Industries." Someone named Nathan Benson? My hand froze over my coffee cup. "Tell him I'm unavailable. He says it's urgent. About your father." My heart lurched despite myself. "Put him through." Nathan's voice was different. Older, tired. "Aria. Thank you for taking my call. What's wrong with Dad?" I asked, cutting through pleasantries. "He had a stroke 2 weeks ago. He's stable, but the doctors say the stress needs to stop." He paused. "The company's in trouble. Real trouble. We need help." I should have hung up. After 8 years of silence, of being erased from family photos and Christmas cards, I owed them nothing. But something kept me on the line. How bad? "We're hemorrhaging money. 3 major clients left last quarter. Our credit line is maxed. We have 6 months, maybe less." Nathan's voice cracked. I've tried everything. But I don't have your gift for this. I never did. And you're calling me because? Because the board wants to bring in outside consultants. But I know someone better. Someone who actually cares about what this company meant to our family. I laughed bitterly. Cared. Past tense. Please, Arya. I know we don't deserve your help. I know I don't. But come see the numbers. If not for Dad, then for the 300 people who'll lose their jobs. I visited the hospital first. My father looked small in the bed, tubes and monitors surrounding him. His powerful frame had shrunk, his commanding presence reduced to shallow breathing and beeping machines. My mother sat beside him, her hand on his. She looked up when I entered, tears streaming down her face. Arya. Oh, sweetheart. She rushed to embrace me. I stood stiffly, unsure how to respond. 8 years of distance didn't dissolve with one hug. He asks for you, she whispered. Even now, even like this, he says your name. I looked at the man who'd called me worthless. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. This was karma, wasn't it? But all I felt was tired. Tired of carrying anger. Tired of proving myself to someone who couldn't see me. I'm going to look at the company's books, I told my mother. That's all I'm promising. She nodded, understanding. That's more than we deserve. The financial records were worse than Nathan had described. Benson Industries wasn't just struggling. It was dying. My father had made a series of catastrophic decisions over the past 5 years. Risky acquisitions paid for with debt. Expansion into markets he didn't understand. Refusing to adapt to changing technology. But underneath the obvious problems, I found something else. Discrepancies in the books. Money moved to accounts I couldn't trace. Payments to shell companies. My father had been hiding the company's failures, cooking the books to maintain the illusion of success. Did you know about this? I asked Nathan, spreading the evidence across the conference table. His face went pale. I knew things were bad. I didn't know they were fraudulent. This isn't just bad management. This is criminal. If this gets out, the company doesn't just go bankrupt. Dad goes to prison. Nathan sank into a chair. What do we do? For the first time in 8 years, my brother looked at me the way I'd always wanted my father to look at me. Like I had answers. Like I was valuable. I spent 3 days locked in the conference room, surviving on coffee and takeout, rebuilding the company's actual financial picture. The situation was dire, but there was a path forward. It would require brutal cuts, complete restructuring, and a massive infusion of capital. Most importantly, it required my father's complete removal from decision-making. You want me to force Dad out? Nathan asked when I presented my findings to him and the board. He already had a stroke. You want to kill him? I want to save 300 jobs, I replied. And keep him out of prison. But that only works if he relinquishes control. Completely. The board members exchanged glances. These men had worked with my father for decades. Suggesting his removal was heresy. Miss Benson, the chairman said carefully, what you're proposing is a hostile takeover of your own family's company. No. I'm proposing we save it. But I need absolute authority. No interference, no second guessing, no pulling rank because of last names. I looked each board member in the eye. I can fix this. But only if you let me do it my way. The vote was unanimous. I was named interim CEO with full operational control. Nathan was essentially demoted to an advisory role, though they called it strategic liaison to save face. My father would remain chairman in title only, with no actual power. I knew he'd fight this the moment he was well enough to understand what had happened. But by then, I intended to have the company so stabilized that removing me would be impossible. My first act was to call an all-company meeting. 300 faces stared at me, most of them confused. They knew me as Marcus Benson's daughter who'd left years ago. They didn't know what I'd become. "I'm Aria Benson," I began. "And I'm here to tell you the truth. This company is in trouble. We have 6 months of operating capital left. But we also have options, and I'm here to exercise them. There will be changes. Some of them painful. But I promise you this, I will fight for every single job in this building. That's more than a promise. It's a guarantee." The first month was warfare. I cut executive salaries, including my own, by 40%. I renegotiated contracts with suppliers, sometimes showing up personally to make my case. I killed 3 underperforming product lines and invested everything into the 2 that showed promise. Every decision I made was questioned, criticized, and fought. But the numbers started to shift. Small improvements, but real ones. Meanwhile, my father was recovering. My mother called with updates. "He's getting stronger. The doctors are pleased. He keeps asking about the company." "Tell him not to worry," I said, though we both knew that was impossible. "Tell him it's handled." When he was finally released from the hospital, I knew the reckoning was coming. I'd been CEO for 6 weeks. Long enough to stabilize the immediate crisis. Not long enough to secure my position. He came to the office on a Monday morning, my mother supporting his arm. He looked friendlier than before, but his eyes held that same sharp intensity. "My office. Now." His voice was weaker but still commanded. I followed him, feeling like that 22-year-old girl again. But I wasn't her anymore. Inside, he eased into his chair with difficulty. I remained standing. "What have you done to my company?" he asked. "I saved it," I replied calmly. "You destroyed my authority. You cut programs I'd approved. You fired people I hired. I fired incompetent executives who were bankrupting us. I cut programs that were hemorrhaging money. And I saved 300 jobs in the process." His face reddened. "You had no right. The board gave me every right. Or did you forget the part where your decisions nearly landed you in prison?" That stopped him. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the desk where he'd once dismissed me. "I built this company," he said finally. "And I'm rebuilding it. The question is whether you can accept that. You're my daughter. You work for me." "No, Dad. You work for me now." That's what the board voted. That's what the company needs. And that's what's going to save us all. He tried to override me at every turn. He'd call board members, attempting to undermine my decisions. He'd walk the floor, contradicting my directives. For 2 weeks, we were at war, and the company suffered for it. Finally, I did what I should have done from the start. I called a board meeting without telling him. "This doesn't work with divided leadership," I told them. "Either I run this company completely, or I walk. But if I walk, I'm taking my turnaround strategy with me. You'll be back to square one, except you'll have wasted 2 months and whatever's left in the bank." The chairman cleared his throat. "What are you proposing?" "Official CEO position." Marcus remains chairman emeritus, which is an honorary title. He gets dignity, but no authority. He'll fight this, someone warned. Let him. But first, show him these. I distributed folders. This is where we were when I started. This is where we are now. And this is where we'll be in 6 months if you let me finish. The projections spoke for themselves. They voted him out. Officially, peacefully, but completely. When my father found out, he showed up at my apartment at midnight. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. How could you? He asked simply. How could I save your company? How could I keep you out of prison? How could I protect your legacy? I stepped aside. Come in. Let's talk about this like adults. He walked slowly to my couch and sat heavily. I built that company from nothing. It was mine. And you almost destroyed it. I had to fix your mistakes, Dad. All of them. The bad acquisitions. The cooked books. The fraud. He flinched at that word. I was trying to buy time. You were trying to hide failure. There's a difference. We sat in silence. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic. Why did you come back? He asked finally. After everything I said to you. After everything I did. Why would you save it? I considered lying. Considered saying it was just business. But we'd had enough lies. Because 300 people needed someone who gave a damn. And because I wanted you to see what I became without you. Over the next 3 months, something shifted. My father started attending board meetings quietly, listening instead of demanding. He'd watch me present strategies, and occasionally I'd see something in his eyes. Recognition maybe. Or regret. The company stabilized. We landed 2 major new clients. Our stock price started recovering. Industry publications ran stories about the turnaround, and my name was attached to each one. One evening, my father appeared at my office door. Do you have a moment? I gestured to the chair. He sat, looking uncomfortable. I was wrong, he said without preamble. About you. About your capabilities. About everything. I waited, not trusting myself to speak. When you came to me 8 years ago, I saw someone who looked like you but acted like me. I saw ambition without experience. Confidence without competence. I thought I was doing you a favor, teaching you a hard lesson. He paused. Instead, I taught you to succeed without me. Which is perhaps the most important lesson of all. Is this an apology? I asked carefully. It's a recognition of fact. You're better at this than I ever was. You see things I missed. You connect with people in ways I never could. He looked at his hands. I built this company with fear and force. You're rebuilding it with vision and value. That's the difference between a founder and a leader. I felt something crack inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. I needed to hear you say that 8 years ago, I said. I know. And I'm sorry I didn't. He stood slowly. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not because you saved my company. But because you became exactly who you needed to be, despite me trying to stop you. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time, crying quietly. Not from sadness. From release. The weight I'd been carrying for 8 years finally started to lift. Nathan and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. Turned out, he'd been struggling under our father's shadow too, just differently. He'd been given everything but never felt he'd earned anything. "I always envied you," he admitted over coffee one morning. "You walked away. You proved you didn't need this. I never had the courage to do that." "You think it took courage?" "I was terrified. I just didn't have a choice." He smiled sadly. "That's what courage is, isn't it? Doing it anyway." We became partners in a real sense. He understood the company's culture and history in ways I didn't. I brought fresh perspective and modern strategies. Together, we were stronger than either of us alone. 6 months after I'd returned, Benson Industries posted its first profitable quarter in 2 years. The board threw a celebration. My father attended, looking healthier than he had in months. He raised his glass to me across the room. I raised mine back. We weren't perfect. We weren't even close. But we were healing. My mother hosted a family dinner, the first in 8 years. It was awkward at first. We'd all changed so much, become such different people. But slowly, conversation flowed. Stories were shared. Laughter emerged. "Do you remember when Arya was 7? My mother asked. She made that business plan for a lemonade stand, complete with projected revenue and expense forecasts. She charged $2 a cup," Nathan laughed. "Nobody bought any." "I learned about market research that day," I said. "Sometimes your product isn't the problem. Sometimes you're just selling to the wrong customers at the wrong price point." My father smiled. "You were always like that. Always analyzing, always thinking 3 steps ahead." "I learned from watching you," I admitted. "The good parts and the bad parts. The best teachers show us both," he replied. After dinner, he pulled me aside. "I'm stepping down from the board. Completely. It's time." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. This is your company now. Not in title, but in truth. And it's in better hands than it ever was in mine." A year after my return, I stood before the same board that had once watched my father dismiss me. "I'm proposing we change the company's direction fundamentally," I began. "We've stabilized. We've recovered. Now it's time to innovate." I outlined my vision. Moving beyond traditional manufacturing into sustainable technology. Investing in research and development. Creating products that solve tomorrow's problems, not yesterday's. "This is risky," the chairman noted. "Safe is what got us into trouble," I countered. My father built this company by taking calculated risks when he was young. Then he stopped taking risks at all. We need to be brave again. Smartly brave, but brave nonetheless. The board approved my plan. As I left the meeting, I passed the office that used to be my father's. My name was on the door now. Sometimes I still couldn't believe it. The girl he'd called worthless now ran everything he'd built. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about something bigger. It was about proving that being dismissed doesn't define you. How you respond to dismissal does. Nathan announced he was leaving to start his own venture. "I need to prove I can build something," he explained. "Like you did. I've been living in shadows my whole life. First Dad's, then yours. It's time I cast my own." I supported him completely, even invested in his startup. "We're not competitors," I told him. "We're family. Your success doesn't diminish mine. My father took Nathan's departure hard. He saw it as another loss, another piece of his legacy crumbling. But I helped him see it differently. He's not leaving your legacy, I said. He's extending it. You built one company. Between us, we're building 3. That's not failure. That's multiplication. The company continued to grow. We launched 2 new product lines that were immediately successful. Our stock price hit a 10-year high. And most importantly, our 300 employees became 400, then 500. We weren't just surviving. We were thriving. I started mentoring young professionals, especially women who'd been told they weren't good enough. I recognized that look in their eyes because I'd seen it in my own mirror. Someone believing you're worthless doesn't make it true, I'd tell them. It just means they can't see value when it's standing right in front of them. 2 years after my return, my father's health declined again. This time, there was no dramatic save. He was 73 and had lived hard. The doctors said it was time to prepare. I visited him every evening after work. We'd talk about the company, about life, about the years we'd lost. I wasted so much time, he said one evening. Being angry at you for not being what I expected instead of seeing what you actually were. We both wasted time, I replied. I spent years trying to prove something to you instead of proving it to myself. He smiled weakly. But you figured it out. That's what matters. We both figured it out. Just took us longer than it should have. He reached for my hand. Promise me something. Don't let this company become your whole identity like it became mine. You're more than a CEO. You're more than a Benson. You're Aria, and that's enough. I held his hand and cried. I promise, Dad. He passed quietly on a Tuesday morning. The funeral was large. Hundreds of people whose lives he touched came to pay respects. But the eulogy fell to me. I stood at the podium, looking at the faces gathered. My father was complicated, I began. He was brilliant and flawed, generous and harsh, visionary and stubborn. He built an empire, nearly destroyed it, and then watched his daughter rebuild it. That would humble anyone. I paused, gathering my thoughts. He taught me my most valuable lessons by being wrong. He showed me I was stronger than I knew by forcing me to prove it. He gave me my greatest gift by taking everything away because it taught me I never needed his approval to be worthy. I loved him. I was angry at him. I proved him wrong. And eventually, I forgave him. That's what family does. We hurt each other, we fail each other, and if we're lucky, we get the chance to heal each other. Dad, wherever you are, I hope you know, I see you now. All of you. And I finally understand. The crowd was silent. I stepped down, feeling lighter than I had in years. 5 years after that day in his office, I stood in the same building, but everything was different. Benson Industries had tripled in size. We'd been named one of the most innovative companies in our sector. I'd been featured in major business publications and invited to speak at conferences worldwide. But more than the success, I'd found peace. I'd learned that being dismissed by someone you love is painful, but it doesn't define you. That proving yourself to others is exhausting, but proving yourself to yourself is liberating. That family can break you and remake you, sometimes in the same lifetime. I kept a framed photo in my office. It was from that family dinner, a year after I'd returned. My mother laughing. Nathan smiling. My father looking at me with something I'd waited my whole life to see, pride. Not because I'd saved his company, but because I'd saved myself. The girl who'd been called worthless had become the woman who knew her value. And that, ultimately, was the greatest revenge of all. Not destroying the man who dismissed me, but becoming so completely myself that his opinion no longer mattered. I'd built an empire not to prove him wrong, but to prove myself right. And in the end, that made all the difference.